Is there any benefit of using HDMI over DV? I recently bought a Mac Mini. It comes with an HDMI to DV adapter. I bought a LG monitor that has an HDMI port. My concern is there any improvement when I connect the Mac Mini to the monitor using an HDMI cable? Currently I am connecting to the monitor's DV port via the adapter and it is working fine. I need to know whether there's any difference in using the HDMI port directly.
The only benefit to HDMI is that you don't need a second cable for audio. HDMI essentially combines a DV connection with audio. Actually, because of this, you can acutely get converters that go from HDMI to DV for a few bucks. Because it already has a DV connection in it, the quality over the HDMI connection would be identical. The only reason you'd want to use HDMI is if you'd like to run sound through the monitor, but it's not going to improve the video quality. That being said, there's a ton of other factors that affect a video quality. Variations in display coatings, backlights, and LCD panels can make the same red icon look very, very different on two different displays. However, since DV and HDMI use the same digital link, there's effectively no signal loss, so one wouldn't look any different than the other on the same display.
HDMI versus DV. Here are a few other facts beside the audio being included with HDMI. From Wikipedia. HDMI is backward compatible with single-link digital visual interface digital video, DVD or DVI, but not DVA. No signal conversion is required when an adapter or asymmetric cable is used, so there is no loss of video quality. This means that HDMI is not the exact same as DV dual link, whose bandwidth is limited only by the bandwidth limits of the copper the DV cable is constructed of and by the DV signal source. Also, there are several specification types and versions to HDMI that limit its speeds. With those two combinational factors, there's a possibility that a HDMI cable and/or port will not produce the same quality as the DV and vice versa. For example, with my home PC I ran into an issue with my HDMI cable connected monitor only running at 60Hz versus the 120Hz that I got from the DVDL. This can cause issues with 3D enabled content. Note, there are HDMI cables that can handle 3D content, but not all. Here are some other sources to look at and a summary of their findings. HDMI versus DV. High-speed HDMI can support up to 4K x 2K res while DV's max is 2560 by 1600. Acoustics.com. So, which is better, DV or component? HDMI or component? The answer unsatisfying, perhaps, but true is that it depends. It depends upon your source and display devices. The introduction of the adapter. Whenever you introduce any type of adapter, you are limited by the specifications of the lowest operating medium. For example, a VGA to DV adapter is limited by the specifications of VGA. In your case, HDMI to DV, the limitations are dependent on the individual devices being used. If the receiving monitor is a single-link DV, then there is probably no difference in quality. However, if the receiving monitor is a dual-link DV, there may exist a reduction in quality.
HDMI shouldn't cause a difference in image quality versus DV. However, you will have to worry about bandwidth issues. These issues really only occur if you're intending on playing computer games. Over HDMI, I found that some games I tried to play would cap the refresh rate at an abysmal 24 Hz, which translated into a lot of image tearing and headaches. However, I found that it was perfectly fine for typical desktop/office tasks and movie watching. If that's all you're doing, then you're perfectly fine using HDMI. If you plan on gaming, though, I'd recommend keeping an eye out for performance issues. They should be readily apparent. Note that these issues that I described can also depend on the software you're running and the drivers you have. My experience may not directly translate to yours. Ultimately, the best way to find out is to try it yourself and see what happens.
Video quality alone, they are the same. HDMI also carries sound, as long as it's supplied. I have heard, although not confirmed, that audio can be carried through a DVI cable, but I haven't heard it, Earl.